About 16 years ago, Porsche introduced their very first SUV, the Cayenne. And as much as Porsche enthusiasts wanted to cry, this is a vehicle that essentially gave Porsche even more money so they could build a better 911 for all you enthusiasts out there. Now, fast forward a few years, and the Cayenne is now in its third generation, completely redesigned for 2019. Now, this week, Porsche has sent me over the latest Cayenne Coupe. That's right, there's now a coupified version, which is new for 2020. And in terms of the specs, this is probably one of the most poverty-spec'd Porsche press cars that I've ever seen. This is just a base Porsche Cayenne, and it's got a pretty light load of options. This one here only has about $10,000 worth of options. Now, a few months ago, I drove a regular Cayenne, not the coupified version, and I came away pretty impressed with the interior space, the driving, although it was kind of missing a little bit of that Porsche soul. Now, Porsche says the Cayenne Coupe is an even more sportier vehicle because of the additional upgrades they gave this car. And the big question I want to answer, if you guys are looking to buy the Porsche of SUVs, is the Cayenne Coupe now holding that distinction? That's what we're here to find out. So when you drive a car with the coveted Porsche badge in the center of the steering wheel, expectations are pretty high. Porsche is known for building sports cars, and obviously the Cayenne is not a sports car. This is the SUV that essentially gave Porsche the money to build better sports cars like the new 911, for example. Now, when I first tested the regular body-styled Cayenne Coupe with this powertrain, I was left feeling a little bit hungry after that review because the base engine, while it's probably fine for most people, for enthusiasts, I found the engine to be a little bit disappointing. So I was a little disappointed when Porsche dropped off just a regular base engine Cayenne. So Porsche, if you're watching this, please send me an S or a turbo model so I can do a proper review and kind of satisfy the thirst that I'm having to drive a regular Porsche. But the Cayenne Coupe is a little bit sportier versus the normal Cayenne, and this has the Sport Chrono package and the adaptive sports suspension, which is standard if you guys go for the Cayenne Coupe, which makes it also, of course, more expensive than a regular Cayenne. Now, the Coupe version is actually a little bit bigger, as I said, versus the regular Cayenne, which is surprising, but Porsche did make some styling changes to this car to make it a little bit more interesting and a little bit more unique. Now, earlier I had mentioned poverty spec, and that may have been a little bit unfair because this is still a Porsche SUV, and they come fairly well equipped even on the baser end models. You can see this one here is just the base Cayenne. Porsche offers several different trims ranging from the S to the E-Hybrid to the Turbo. I was hoping Porsche would at least send me the S model because it has a different engine. I've already tested this engine in the normal Cayenne body style, but I'll keep an open mind because the Coupe, I think, is actually one of the best looking coupified SUVs, especially when you look at the weird looks that BMW offers and Mercedes offers on the X6 and the GLE. Now, as you can see, the Cayenne is the largest SUV that Porsche makes. This is essentially their flagship SUV, and the Coupe has its own slightly unique look to the front end. It has the traditional Porsche look. You can see my tester has the standard headlights. You have the 4-point LEDs, which are standard, but this is the bi-xenon headlight. If you guys want the full LEDs with the swiveling function, that's going to cost you like an extra $2,700. You can see down here is the LED turn signal. This one here also doesn't have the sport design option package, so this is the standard bumper. Overall, it's a very clean, inoffensive look. It's a very conservative look. That's what Porsche tends to do. They don't like to change the look too much because this is going to look timeless for quite some time. I also don't particularly love the white color. It makes it look a little bit more like a Porsche loaner car, but if you want, Porsche will give you whatever color you'd like, and you can pay as much as like $4,000 for a Porsche exclusive color. Now, looking at the side profile, this is probably the most attractive angle for me because I really like how Porsche has sloped the rear end of this car without making it look awkward like things like the X6 or the Tesla Model Y or Tesla Model X. You can see compared to the regular Cayenne, this is about half an inch longer. It's the same width, it's got the same 114-inch long wheelbase, but around 194.2 inches long. It's a little bit longer. It's also about a half inch lower because remember, it's supposed to be a coupified version. Now, looking at the wheels of this particular one here, these wheels are a $2,700 option. These are the 21-inch RS Spider wheel, essentially. They look good. They fill out the wheel wells nicely. Porsche also paints the wheel arches when you go for these optional wheels. They also give you that colored Porsche emblem in the center cap, which is also a nice addition. These are just the standard brakes. Remember, if you guys go up to the higher end Cayenne Coupe models, you can option in carbon ceramics. You can option in those new brakes that are designed to give you less brake dust, because that's usually a thing with European cars. This panoramic sunroof on my tester actually is included, which actually surprised me a lot. It's a very nice big roof, which we'll talk about in the interior of the vehicle. And again, looking at the rear portion here, this is the biggest difference between the standard body style. And I think this is seriously one attractive looking SUV. I really am impressed with the design of this thing. It has the look of the 911 with that new taillight. The one thing that I think didn't work is this panel right here. This car has a pop-up deployable spoiler, which you can open up at the push of a button. It looks stupid when it's up. It literally looks like you left the tailgate open. So my recommendation, just leave it down because it does pop up. However, when you guys are driving above 70 miles an hour, you can see you got full LED taillights. This is just a regular Cayenne. If you guys want, you can have Porsche delete this badge here so nobody knows you've got the base end Cayenne, in case some of you want to play a little bit under the radar, fly under the radar. Now underneath here, you can see no sport exhaust on this particular one here. If you want, Porsche can change out the dual exhaust outlet for a quad system if you guys go for the sport exhaust, which is like an extra $3,200. Now opening up the trunk area, it's a coupified SUV, so you're gonna have a little bit less space, but not much less space. You're looking at around 22 cubic feet of space with the seats up. That's about 6 cubic feet less than what you get in the standard Cayenne. If you fold down the second row seats, there's no third row option on this car, you get around 54 cubic feet of space. Again, that's a 6 cubic feet reduction versus the regular Cayenne, which does make this thing a little bit smaller on the inside versus something like an X5 or the Mercedes GLE. Now, unlike most of those swoopy coupe SUVs, which I hate, I actually really like the way this looks. It's an improvement over the regular Cayenne. So if you're gonna go for a Cayenne, I highly recommend going for the coupe. Now, Porsche interiors have also been very, very nice. This one here has some additional extras to make it even more luxurious. I don't particularly love the gray color, but it's filled with all the tech and gadgetry that most people want, as long as you're willing to pay for it. So with this coupified SUV, you're probably wondering, how is the back seat space now? Now, I will say at 5'7", I do have to duck my head slightly to get back here. But once you do and shut the door, you can see the Cayenne offers a very spacious cabin. This is one of the reasons why you want to go from a Macan to a Cayenne, because even though Porsche doesn't post the legroom specs, I'm going to say this is around 37 inches. It's pretty much the same. You do have less headroom versus the regular body styled Cayenne, which will be a problem if you guys are over 6 feet tall. But in terms of the materials, this one here also has the upgraded leather in the inside. So you have leather stitching on the rear door panels, on the lower part of the door panels. That's all part of that option if you guys want it. It's also missing the 4-zone climate control option. That's why there's this big, massive empty space here. Porsche does give you 2 USB-C ports there. There's 2 rear seat air vents. And if you guys like, there's an armrest that folds down that gives you 2 cup holders, and these back seats also recline if you guys want to get a little bit more comfortable. But overall, the back seat of the Cayenne is definitely great for families, especially if you guys have to put a car seat back here. So just like the regular Cayenne, the coupe version still offers a good amount of practicality in the trunk space and in the back seat. But now, this is the coupe model. What about performance? Remember, this has the base engine, and it's an okay engine, but when you know that there are more powerful versions of this car available, it leaves you feeling a little bit hungry. Underneath the hood of the Cayenne Coupe, I wish I was showing you guys like a higher performance engine, but this is actually the base motor. It's a 3-liter single turbocharged V6 with direct injection. This engine is actually shared with a lot of Audi products. It's essentially the same motor that you find in something like an Audi SQ5 or an Audi S4. In the Porsche Cayenne Coupe, it makes 335 horsepower and 332 pound-feet of torque. Those are actually pretty good numbers for a base engine. Remember, this goes head-to-head with something like a BMW X5, xDrive 40i, or a Mercedes-Benz GLE 450. Now, if you guys obviously want more power, there's an S version which has a 2.7-liter twin-turbo V6 with like 434 horsepower. There's an E-hybrid version which has like over 450 horsepower, and then there's a turbo which has like over 540 horsepower. So those are all going to have to wait until Porsche sends me a more powerful version of this car, but you have decent performance with this. It goes out through an 8-speed torque converter automatic, and Porsche says with the Sport Chrono package, which is standard on the coupe, you should get to 60 in under 6 seconds. As this one sits, it weighs around 4,663 pounds. It's about 100 pounds heavier versus the regular body-styled Cayenne. And fuel economy is not too bad. It's rated at 19 in the city, 23 on the highway. When you've got a 24-gallon gas tank, this thing will go over 500 miles of range on the highway, which is pretty good. Premium is going to be, of course, required. If you guys plan to tow with your Cayenne, this thing will tow a maximum of 7,700 pounds. Now, because it has the Sport Chrono package, this does have launch control. So let's go ahead and give it a try here. Not bad. Instead of race start or something like that, it says performance start when the launch controls engage. And unlike the PDK Porsches, which will bounce off the rev limiter at like 6,000 RPM, this will just build the revs to about 3. But once it actually takes off, I actually felt a pretty nice shove. Remember, this base engine only has 335 horsepower and 332 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers are fine in something like an Audi S4, which is essentially the same engine as this, just up-tuned a little bit. This is detuned slightly. But remember, the Cayenne Coupe S offers 434 horsepower. There's an e-hybrid that offers 454 horsepower. And then, of course, there's the turbo, which is twice the price of the base model that offers 540 horsepower. So it's a little disappointing when, you know, 0 to 60 comes in around 5.7 seconds with the Sport Chrono package. It's not bad, but you'll be struggling to beat some V6 or turbocharged family sedans, you know, and drag races because this thing is so heavy. It weighs 4,600 pounds. Now, in terms of handling, this does have the adaptive dampers. I have it in this most aggressive sport setting. And you know what? The Cayenne's weight actually shrinks considerably. This definitely handles and feels like a Porsche SUV. I mean, the engine of this car is very uncharacteristic. It feels like I'm driving something that, you know, could be powering an Audi, which it technically is. This is the same motor in something like a Q7, same platform vehicle. But with these big fat tires that this one has, the 21-inch wheels, the stiffer suspension, it will hold its own. The Cayenne Coupe's chassis could easily handle more horsepower, double the horsepower. So there's a reason why you want to pony up to get the S or the turbo models. I just wish the engine had more bark to it in the base engine. I recommend going for the sport exhaust, which this one doesn't have. The 8-speed torque converter automatic, this is the ZF transmission, is a decent partner for this engine, but I did find there were times where it hesitates. If I don't have it in Sport Plus and I'm not driving as aggressive as I can, it will hesitate to downshift whenever I ask for full throttle, and it takes like a second of delay for it to downshift, which kind of makes this thing feel even slower, unfortunately. But again, Porsche wants you to know there's an upgraded engine available for you there. This still is not bad for, you know, most people. I mean, this will compare favorably, of course, to a BMW X6 40i, the 3-liter straight six, or a Mercedes GLE GLE 400 or 450 Coupe, whatever. I'm confused with the Mercedes names at times, but it offers decent performance for what it is. But you should know that Porsche charges a lot of money for a lot of their cars. This is a pretty expensive car, even in terms of, you know, equipment. This one is missing a lot of driver assistance tech. All it has is automatic emergency braking and lane change assist, blind spot monitoring. It doesn't have adaptive cruise control, no active lane keep assist. Porsche offers an amazing driver assistance called Innovation Drive, which is level 2 autonomy. I'd love to test it out, but this doesn't have that option for it. You know, 360 camera, it's optional. There's just so many things that my tester is missing, like cooled seats and memory seats, which are optional, which shouldn't be optional, especially considering the price point of this car. Now, in terms of fuel economy, I actually got pretty decent gas mileage in this thing. When Porsche dropped it off, it was showing 550 miles on a full tank, which was impressive. It does have a really large 25-gallon gas tank, but in my week's worth of testing, I averaged around 18 mpg in the city, and on the highway, it got around 23.9 mpg. So pretty good, decent gas mileage for something that's so big, that's so heavy. Remember, this also tows a maximum of 7,700 pounds. So it's a very useful SUV that also rides really well. Even when it's in Sport Plus here and its harshest suspension setting, this thing is so comfortable that I can just cruise all day long on the highway in this thing. It gets nice and quiet, very little road, wind, and engine noise. Maybe even too quiet for a Porsche SUV. But yeah, in terms of a luxury SUV, Porsche got that right, and that's probably why their SUVs sell so well, because it feels every bit a luxury car, but just in the base form, it doesn't feel quite as sporty as I would like. So that's something to keep in mind if you are an enthusiast and you have like a 911 or a Cayman in your garage. The base Cayenne or base Macan just won't do it for you. You have to go up to the higher trims. Even the paddles in this car don't respond quite as quickly as I'd like them to. And the transmission, I noticed, will shift a little bit harsher than I would like it to when you're in manual mode. So my recommendation, just leave the car in its like sport, just let the transmission do its business, because when it's doing its own gears, it swaps cogs very efficiently, very quickly, very smoothly. Just not quite as responsive as I would like it to be, even in Sport Plus. Now this car does offer its Sport Response button here. When you push that, it goes into like a overboost function where it gives you maximum boost, maximum sportiness for a 20-second burst. Seems rather unnecessary in this big SUV, along with the, you know, the timer clock over here. It's part of the Sport Chrono package, but hey, that's what's included. It's usually a $3,000 option, and it's included in the Cayenne Coupe at no charge, although this is, remember, more expensive than the regular Cayenne. The seats in my tester, these are also the standard 14-way adjustable seats with no memory. They are power. I find the seats to be okay. They hold you in place very nicely. I like the look of them. The leather feels not quite as supple as I would like it to, considering this is the upgraded leather. $3,200 for this interior that includes leather everywhere. My recommendation, just pony up for the 18-way seats with the memory function. In a vehicle like this, it just should have memory. It should have cooled seats as well. And if you want massage, Porsche does offer a massaging seat, but again, you gotta pay extra for all that. You guys see that? That's what the spoiler looks like when it's popped up. You can either do that with a button on the inside or when you're driving above 70 miles an hour. It literally looks like I left a piece of the trunk open. It just looks silly to me. Thankfully, you can put that spoiler down, but after spending the week with the Porsche Cayenne Coupe, I'm pretty torn because I wanted to not like this thing, but surprisingly, I actually like the coupified version of the Cayenne a lot because I think that Porsche got the look of this thing really nicely compared to the regular Cayenne. And unlike the BMW and Mercedes counterparts, it's actually a very attractive and sportier driving vehicle versus the regular version. Because like I said earlier, the coupe version comes standard with the Sport Chrono package. It comes standard with the Sport dampers. If you add those in on the base Cayenne, that's gonna cost you roughly $6,000 to $7,000. Now, granted, the coupe version is more expensive. It's about $9,000 more expensive, starting at around $75,800 for this base version. My tester here has pretty light load of options. Stickers for around $86,000. I know $86,000 is a lot of money for a car that doesn't have smart entry. It doesn't have cooled seats. It's kind of an insult. It doesn't have memory seats, but remember, that's Porsche for you. They charge extra for everything. Now, after spending a week driving this thing, it definitely feels a lot more like the Porsche of SUVs. The last one that I drove didn't have the Sport Chrono package, and this just feels a lot quicker. The transmission's more responsive. The engine also feels more responsive. So my recommendation is if you're gonna have to buy the base model of any Porsche, option in the Sport Chrono package because it really makes a difference to the overall driving dynamic. But in typical with other Porsche vehicles, there isn't much value into play with this, so you're gonna have to essentially pay a little bit extra for the badge, but I would argue that the Cayenne still represents one of the sportiest driving vehicles in the segment. If you have the money, I'd recommend spending an extra $13,000 going for the S version because it gets you an extra 100 horsepower. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2020 Porsche Cayenne Coupe. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.